You're tuned in to today's Live at 5. Before we jump into today's episode, I just want to remind you that this show is only possible because of the continued support of amazing people like you. You can continue to support us by subscribing to this YouTube channel, sharing an episode with a friend, or signing up to our Patreon page via the link in the description below. From there, you'll be able to access some exclusive bonus content and dive deeper into the world of Live at 5. Now, without any further ado, let's get right into today's show. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to Live at 5 on this Tuesday, April 28th. We hope that you're having, if you're in London, we hope you're enjoying our first Live at 5 rainy afternoon. You know, rain's okay too. And we're joined today by a new producer. Darcy was simply not cutting the bacon. I don't know how to say that. And so instead we've gotten our friend Steve from Apple. Steve, can you tell us how it's looking in Cupertino? I always, whenever I wear a black turtleneck and jeans, I always just imagine if everyone at Apple had to wear the Steve Jobs uniform, if that was like the staff, like if you walked into the Apple store and everybody was dressed. I mean, it would be totally convincing. I mean, I'd have bought another iPhone. Yeah, it's like he's trapped in 1992, isn't it? It's like, it's amazing. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Steve Jobs' outfits or Darcy O'Connor's fashion sense, even though it is always spot on. We're here to talk to our special guest today, who's a great friend of mine and drummer and composer, band leader from Copenhagen, Denmark. His name's Snorre Kirk, and we're going to jump right into some music from him and one of his frequent collaborators, an American tenor saxophonist, Stephen Riley. And this is a little clip from about 6 years ago. They're playing in Denmark, and this is Duke Ellington's Perdita. You're listening to Live at 5. And we're back live at 5. We hope you enjoyed that performance from Stephen Riley and our special guest, Snorre Kirk, who's joining us today from Copenhagen, Denmark. How are you, Snorre?
I'm good, thank you. It's good to be here at both 5 and 6 at the same time.
Yeah, like you're on jazz time. Yeah. You're an hour late.
5
Amazing,
and 6.
Man. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Well, it's so cool to have you on the show. We had you down at Smitty's about, got to be 6 months ago now, which feels like 3 lifetimes ago.
Absolutely.
But it was just such a treat. And I wanted to ask you in relation to that Stephen Riley clip. I had never heard of Stephen Riley until you told me about him, and we had your record. What is it called? Tangerine
Rhapsody.
Tangerine Rhapsody. That was our record of the day. A couple weeks back, and I just think it's such a great album. And I was wondering how you found Stephen, and because you guys have been friends for a while.
I mean, he's that's always the story with him. He's like the best kept secret in jazz somehow. And we were actually, it was kind of a blind date thing where there was the most legendary jazz club in Denmark at the time, which we called it the Copenhagen Jazz House, which is now closed, unfortunately. The music booker at that venue, he was asking Branford Marsalis, he was asking him, who are you listening to? And he was, man, these days I'm only listening to Stephen Riley. And he was, who?
Wow,
Stephen
that's
Riley.
A good endorsement.
That's a pretty good endorsement. And then he wanted to bring him to Europe, and then he hooked us up for six nights for the Copenhagen Jazz Festival in 2010 for like a late night show, and he was very skeptical. We were very skeptical, like nobody had heard of anyone, and then it turned out to be a perfect match. It was love at first beat.
That's
so
really cool.
Unlikely meeting that way.
So where does he live, and is he in New York?
He's back in New York now, yes. But he's his story is he's from North Carolina originally, and then he entered the scene very early as a prodigy with Ray Charles at 17, and went on to play in Harry Connick's, that first legendary big band, and then straight onto the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra in those early 90s days. And then and then he developed a really bad, unfortunately, drug habit, which he has also been very public about. But then took him around 10 years to make a return to the scene, which is now doing.
Well, that's amazing. And it's so, I think, I want to talk about your roots in jazz, and I think it's so cool to hear you two together, because your roots as a modern drummer are kind of, I'd say relatively different from, from most other people playing on kind of the European scene today. And you have such an incredible sense of grounding in your time, and you're so, you obviously are kind of well versed in lots of styles of drumming, but you love to swing, and I think that's something about him that I hear, that he's out of the Ben Webster kind of, all that great tradition of saxophone playing. But how did, he's from the States, maybe he got it from secondhand from somebody there, but you grew up in Copenhagen. Where did you find the sound of jazz that you love to play?
Mainly through, growing up, when I started playing drums, which was also kind of an accidental thing. I wanted to play guitar, but this was like the summer of Guns N' Roses, 91, there were no slots left for guitar at the music schools. Like you can have a go at the drums. Okay, cool. I'll do drums for a year and then go guitar. But then I fell instantly in love. And the first album my parents got me was a Gene Krupa compilation album. So that was kind of also by accident, I suppose, the foundation for the love for that kind of beat and swing and sound. And then, of course, it went on from there, just doing as any young musician will do, researching and going through phases of different stuff, and
so kind of amazing, right? So give us a little background of what the jazz scene is like in Denmark, because I was saying before, your scene is obviously is a broad scene, and it's there's a lot of mastery and incredible playing, but you guys aren't the first generation of Danish jazz. Can you give us kind of a little 101 in that?
Well, Denmark was I would say probably one of the two places where Americans would go to live in during the 50s, 60s and onwards. And I suppose, due to several reasons, just the basic openness of the people and the attitude towards musicians, and also from a race perspective, it was a pretty open-minded country compared to others in Scandinavia, at least. So we have a long tradition of having people staying here for someone like Ben Webster, who lived here for years. Dexter Gordon lived there. Stan Getz was living here. It's always tenor players for some reason.
Stephen Riley, maybe next.
Maybe next, yeah. Horace Parlan lived here for years. So it's and that really, really influenced Danish musicians at large.
Yeah, of course you have, Niels Henning Ørsted Petersen was kind of, the person that people always think of as one of the kind of first in the native, masters of Danish jazz. And then, in terms of the people that came over, you have a very, intimate connection to Ed Thigpen. Can you tell us a little bit about that? He was obviously the longtime drummer in the Oscar Peterson trio, and an incredible, jazz drummer. But tell us about how you met him and how he came to be your teacher.
He lived in Copenhagen up until his death in 2010, and I had the pleasure of studying him when I was at the conservatory in Copenhagen, on and off for, I think it was for the first 2 years I was studying there, and he would teach lots of places in Denmark. And that was, even though I was young and stupid like everyone is when they're 21, 22, and I wish I could study with him now.
Darcy wasn't stupid.
No, of course, because he's got.
Check out the glasses. That's how you know.
Exactly. But I was still learned so much from him, about drumming and about he was just a really generous, loving really sweet guy, but also very strict about stuff, you know.
Well, you told me something about, that when you went to lessons, you wore a tie or something, right?
Not a tie, but a shirt, you know, or something decent. I think the first time I had a lesson with him, I showed up in like shorts and flip flops and a t-shirt with mustard stains on, and he was like, "Are we going to do this, or are we, are you serious, or are you just playing around?"
It's kind of a heavy concept, that whole idea of, I've had a lot of discussions with people over the years about, and we have in Smitty's as well. What do you wear on stage? And the whole, because jazz jazz kind of likes to think of itself as this very liberal music that's free and easy, and we all do what we want. We're democratized, and we kind of have our own voice, and we play what we want when we want. But the wisest words in jazz in terms of dress code is the Art Blakey saying, "They see you before they hear you." And I've loved that for years, because you can walk out on stage in a t-shirt and shorts with flip flops and mustard stains, but you're gonna have to play a lot better to win people over. Exactly. And think that they paid to see some kid with mustard stains. So when I think of that, Ed Thigpen saying that to you, I mean, apart from the fact that Ed Thigpen is to be, the altar of Ed Thigpen is certainly one to worship at for those who are interested in swing. It would be great to hear that from any teacher, because it would mean that they're ready to kind of take things seriously and give you real tutelage. I mean, how many years did you spend with him?
I mean, on and off for two years, because it was pretty late in his life. So right. I would do occasional lessons, and he would, give me some of his absolutely fantastic words of wisdom in every way. And the good part is that some of those things I'm still processing. I will occasionally go, so that was what he meant, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Now
Amazing.
that I'm actually able to relate to that.
Right. Well, I think we should jump into another little piece of music, and I think, Darcy, where's this one?
This is another piece with Snorre and Stephen. Do you want to give us a little bit of context for this one, Snorre?
I think this piece, if I recall correctly, is a live thing from. We've been doing a lot of touring this past year, and this is from this past fall, from a Danish club on the island of Funen, which is small but really nice, a nice venue.
Amazing. All right, let's get into it.
And we're back. We've put the fun back in Funen with Snorre Kirk and Stephen Riley. How do you think of the role of the drums in a band? Just kind of. I know that's such a broad question, but I want you to talk about your approach a little bit.
Well, I mean, most people are standing up. The piano player is on the piano bench, and the drummer is on the throne.
Well, there you have it.
Kind of says it all. Yeah.
He rules with an iron fist. It was all fun and Funen, but now we're back to work.
It's a Game of Thrones, That's the thing. I mean, no, I think or for me, in my perspective, the drummer carries kind of the biggest responsibility, which is a shitty job often, because you're the loudest instrument if you want to be or need to be, and you're also the one dictating the time the most. There's a lot of responsibility there, to if you want to make things sound good, at least in this kind of music, because there are other approaches as well, of course, but it's but for me, I think I'm more of I really like comping, and supporting and just playing music more than I'm not. I can honestly say I'm not the most comfortable soloist, for instance. I can enjoy it, but I feel like I got a long way to go, to have something to say as a drum solo player. I need to learn to play time well first,
Right. Well, it's, when you saying that, it's when we've played together, I feel, I always feel kind of the hand of support, that I really value so much, because, I mean, for people who play jazz will understand the kind of level of vulnerability that one subjects themselves to when kind of improvising, and all the help you can get is welcomed, and so when I what I remember about playing with you is that you're I always think of drummers as being playing in a certain range of the kit, because actually a drum kit has a lot of tonalities in it. It has the bass, it has kind of mid-range toms, and then it has kind of a tenor voice in the snare, and then it has this kind of really high stuff in the cymbals. And some drummers play all high, and they kind of will wash out the sound and kind of mark, like you said, marking the beats with kind of accents and things, and cymbals can be very kind of brash. And then you have drummers who play from the bottom of the kit. And I feel like you kind of do all of it. So it kind of gives me the security to really kind of explore. And I always remember that from us playing together. For example, I think of, Jason Brown, who's a, similarly incredible drummer. He really plays from the bottom of the kit. It's really, and he plays loud, but you get that kind of almost bass voice, the core of it. And I was just wondering, when you think about playing, a groove, I always think of you playing this tempo. Ding, 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 ding. How do you conceptualize that? Who did you listen to? Where did you get, your sound for that? And yeah, just talk about that a little bit, because we have some clips of, I think, us at Smitty's, and I hope that's in there, because yeah.
I think it is. I can't remember actually, but yeah. I mean, to me, the ride cymbal beat, that is the equivalent of, the tone of a saxophone player, for instance. No matter what notes are being played or which key or whatever, you'll recognize Ben Webster after 2 bars, or Stan Getz after 2 bars, or whoever. And for drummers, that is, I mean, if you jump into any drum solo from 1958, it can actually be hard to decipher at once if is this Philly Joe Jones or Art Taylor or Jimmy Cobb, But when it comes to the ride beat, that's you'll know instantly. Okay, this can only be that person.
Wow. Yeah.
So for me, that's I keep going like this. That's the thing to work on,
Yeah.
And it's such a paradoxical thing, because it's so simple in its in its concept. It's close to nothing, but getting it to sound good at first, and then getting a personal sound from that is that's a lifetime of work,
Yeah. So give us a couple of drummers to check out.
I mean, ride cymbal wise, for me, I think my top 3 would probably be Sonny Payne, Sam Woodyard, and Art Blakey.
Wow. Interesting choices. I didn't have you as any of those. I was
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
because
interesting.
the first two are big band drummers.
Exactly. But
That's interesting.
but playing in a very I think, or what I love about both of them is that they're kind of they play big band like it's small group, you know. And when it's if something goes into like a quartet format within those two Count Basie or Duke Ellington bands, it sounds the same, you know. And
Wow.
and that beat is just so strong and so groovy. I love that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been going through phases of checking out right cymbal beats from everybody. Joe Jones too is a big influence on the way to phrase.
Very cool. So did you ever play, you said, you went through your teenage phase. Did you ever, because I think of your sound as, well, I think of your sound as your own, and I want to talk about that in the next break. But I hear that you have a very focused approach to playing drums in your band and in other bands as well. But did you ever kind of experiment with, playing in other kinds of bands, or was it like, jazz all the time?
Well, no, I would say, I mean, jazz has kind of always been there, and then I would kind of cheat on it with other stuff. And I had like especially the teenage thing, where I even, long hair, bought the Dave Weckl shoes, that kind of
oh man, amazing
kind of fusion thing. And I played a lot of rock and roll stuff.
Did you get the double bass pedal?
I was a proud double bass pedal owner, that I could never play. And I've probably bought and sold a lot of double pedals and never learned to play it. I never will.
I'm very glad.
Me too.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of other, detours. But it's always like jazz has always been there in the center of it. Luckily.
Yeah, I think it's cool to I think one of the reasons that we kind of got along so well musically is that I'm really focused on the kind of influences and periods that you are, but I feel like we both embrace the idea that just because we play one style of music doesn't mean the others are bad.
Oh no,
and I think many bought and sold double bass pedals with a smile on your face makes me think that it was probably worth trying the avenue, even if you didn't go down it.
Exactly. It looked good, felt good. Sounded horrible.
Great. Yeah, right. Well, let's jump into another piece of music, and this is us, right? Is that right, Darce? So this is us at Smitty's. There's a couple of clips, and you'll see Ferg Ireland on bass. I think Dave was playing on this one, right? Dave Archer on guitar. And there's a little appearance from Guy Barker on trumpet, who coincidentally is our guest tomorrow evening. So check this out. You're listening to Live at 5 with special guest Snorre Kirk. Hey there, and we're back live at 5, and I've just realized that we have a common live at 5 set, which is to have a green plant to one side and a stand lamp. I think that we're all sharing that.
We've all got that. Mine
Yeah.
might be just off screen. Oh no, there it is.
Yeah, there's your lamp. So if you want to come on live at 5, we'd love to have you, but you'll need to get a plant and a stand lamp, and then we can start to consider you. Jazz experience, not necessary. So Snorre, I love listening to that clip because, I loved, getting to play and getting to kind of dig into some, just play some standards and have a great time in London. But actually, your main thing these days is as a band leader and composer. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And so how did you don't meet a lot of drummers who are band leaders, for one, and you don't meet a lot of drummers that compose original music. So what was your kind of transition into that from being, more of a sideman into being, what you are now?
I think it happened kind of naturally. I mean, because I've always been interested in just in music, more than just drumming, which is often the case with drummers. Not that there's anything bad about that. So I've always been, writing bits and pieces here and there. And then during my years of studying at the conservatory, I started writing more and more. And along the way, I realized I wanted to make a band and try to perform these things. And then it's just been learning by doing and going, just as with the drumming stuff, going through different phases of inspiration and ways to write and doing that more and more.
Do you write at the piano, or do you kind of, is it something that you kind of just conceptualize, or what?
It's a mix of everything, some stuff at the piano, some will be ideas at inconvenient times that I will sing into my phone and try to decipher later on, and some stuff will be on the computer in like notation software, stuff like that.
Right,
it's
a variety.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that you have a tune called 18th and Vine. That was a nice find for me because I found you. I think I found you on Spotify as a similar artist. Either that or I found you on Instagram because I follow that Funk Symbols guy. And he had tagged you in something. But it was so cool discovering your music from afar, because what we do with Smitty's, I've always kind of been disappointed that I always kind of thought, oh, well, maybe more people, I would love if we had more peers in kind of investing in playing swing music without any kind of other preconceptions. It's just like, it's good music. It makes people feel good. Let's do it,
Yeah.
And so I found your records, and I want to tell people to check it, dig into Snorre's catalog, because how many, you must have what, three records out now? 4?
5 actually.
5. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's one called The Beat of the Drum, right?
It's called Beat. Yeah, just straight up Beat. Yeah.
And then there's you tell us.
The first one I made was called Blues Modernism back in 2011, something like that. And then there's one called Europe, like the rock band. And then there was Drummer and Composer and Beat, and the latest one is Tangerine Rhapsody.
So Drummer and Composer has 18th and Vine on it, right?
I think that's on Beat, actually.
On Beat, okay. Well, sorry, I don't mean to quiz you on your back catalog, but how much of that material is your stuff?
It's all my stuff.
Wow. So even Tangerine Rhapsody is your music.
Yes.
Wow, that's really cool.
That's been my concept from the start. That if as a drummer, it's hard to interpret, or for me at least, it's hard to interpret standards or other people's songs in a similar way that a piano player or a saxophone player would do, since I'm mostly limited to playing or taking the back seat playing wise. So it made more sense to be doing originals only, for me at least.
Amazing. So are there any projects on the horizon that you're excited about digging into, or is it quintet for life?
Quintet for life sounds like a verdict.
Yeah, it's a sentence.
Yeah, a sentence. Yeah. I mean, right now we just recorded a new album with Stephen Riley as a quartet here in March.
Whoa. Wow.
Most of it, we were actually, the studio was shut down by the building guards, due to the lockdown in the middle of the session. So we made like 70% of an album, but that'll be out later this year once we figure out how to finish that.
I can't wait for that. Wow.
I'm really excited about that, and some kind of a twist in another direction too,
cool,
with that music. So that'll be fun, I think.
Well, we'll look out for that, and hopefully we can get you back to London at some point this year, if not as soon as possible. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you about everything.
Thank you, man. It's a treat.
Yeah. So we do have a record of the day, which Darcy is going to put over this shoulder in a second. And it's Ed Thigpen's 1966 album that I can never remember the title of. Darcy, what's it called?
Well, if you look to your top note, it's called Out of the Storm. This is
Out of the Storm.
The lineup's amazing. We were talking about it with Snorre just before we came on air. Do you want to tell us about it, G?
Yeah, so I knew about Snorre's connection to Ed Thigpen, and everybody thinks of Ed Thigpen as the kind of the rock in Oscar Peterson's trio with Ray Brown, and there are just so many amazing recordings of that band. But I thought, let's stretch a little bit and find some of his lesser known stuff. And he did make albums as a leader, some of which were in Denmark, as we were talking to Snorre about before. But in '66, he made an album with, of all people, Kenny Burrell and Herbie Hancock. I think it's very interesting to have, having Ed Thigpen play with Herbie Hancock is like having Elvin Jones play with Benny Goodman. It's kind of like, let's play some fantasy football with jazz musicians. So I think it's definitely an album worth listening to. And the track that we're definitely going to highlight on our Live at 5 playlist is Strutting with Some Barbecue, because that's, a song long associated with Louis Armstrong. But to hear Herbie Hancock playing kind of his take on that traditional style is really interesting. And just to refresh your memories, we have, via the link in the description below, we have a Live at 5 playlist that you can check out. We have a link to the stream and to our website where you can join Kansas Smitty's membership. And in a separate link, we also have a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to support the Live at 5 broadcasts. There are 2 different tiers, but with both of them, there are little things that we send you that kind of enhance the experience of Live at 5. And we want to thank all of those who have joined. And most recently, we have Munya and Susan. So thanks to both of you for joining us on Patreon. Thank you again to Snorre. Thank you, Darcy. And thank you, of course, to all of you. Remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and we'll see you tomorrow night, Live at 5 with Guy Barker. Have a good night. Thanks again for listening to Live at 5. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with every episode. You can also click on the link in the description below to sign up to our Patreon and find out where you can sign up for Kansas Smitty's memberships, as well as purchase records and merch. Enjoy your evening, and we'll see you tomorrow, Live at 5.